Hiya! Today we are discussing The Morning Show Season 2, Episode 8, in which we worry that security at network TV is even worse than we thought last season. But before we get in too deep, lest you forget, I am giving my thoughts and my opinions on the show and talking about the episode in some depth. So this recap and review comes with a spoiler warning for those who haven't seen the episode yet. If you have, I really want to hear your opinions, even or especially if you disagree with me. So please do like, subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's look at The Morning Show Season 2, Episode 8, Confirmations. Everybody is off to work super early. Laura is alone in bed and a bit sad about it. Corey is working his guilt out in an early morning workout and suppressing all the emotions. He tells Stella, "It doesn't matter if I'm okay. How I'm doing cannot be your problem. Caring about other people, it limits your ability to make self-serving decisions." And even Stella seems to find this speech a bit out there. The executive doth protest too much. He will surely reveal his betrayal to Bradley eventually. But will it be this season? Mark Duplass has the unenviable task of letting Chip act opposite an answering machine, which he shouts at furiously. I confess I couldn't take in much of this rant, and I'm not convinced that we're really supposed to follow a logical argument here. This was a vent. With Alex MIA and Isabella's assessment of his white male privilege, Chip is in a bad place, and it's coming out here at Alex through her voicemail. It is inevitable, even as he's recording it, that this is going to come back to haunt him. The timing of this episode in relation to episodes 6 and 7 was a tiny bit confusing, but I think Bradley and Laura still being in a fight and Bradley's brother still sleeping on the sofa suggests, to me, that the past two episodes essentially happened at the same time. But having had that mini movie episode in Italy last week, I had to take a moment to remind myself where Bradley and Laura were at and why they weren't talking to each other and instead fighting over their phones in adjacent dressing rooms. I thought that I was hashtag Team Laura here, but looking back, I think Laura might have been expecting too much from Bradley after being publicly outed when this is still so new to her. I'm not sure what Laura is angry with her about particularly. Maybe she's just trying to create distance to encourage Bradley to grow. As they go on air, the atmosphere is chilly, and we hear that a full COVID outbreak is inevitable. It's still coming, but we only have 2 episodes left, so it better come pretty soon. So, cast your mind back and remember how idyllic they painted Chip's Hallmark life at the start of the season with his wonderful fiancée. This scene with the two of them was so cringe for me, but I understand that we're supposed to be watching Chip spiral. They discuss Alex being missing, and his fiancée says she'll turn up somewhere. "Yeah," says Chip. "The morgue." "Oh, 'cause Mitch is dead, get it?" Then he suggests revenge sex in Alex's office, and fair enough, she gets creeped out. He is coming across a bit weird, but I think I also did note how uncaring his fiancée seems. Presumably she doesn't just see him as a mediocre white man, but as someone of value. So why doesn't she see that he's acting unusually and ask him what's going on? But we are in TV land, and she is little more than a plot device. Remember, she's known him less than 9 months, really. Anyway, she leaves and doesn't want him to walk her out. Maybe she's only just clocked that he really is in love with Alex. Corey is having an emergency meeting to discuss how to spin Maggie Brenner's impending book into a positive for TMS. He acknowledges that the book is going to be bad in many ways and that Mitch is as good as dead. Oh, 'cause Mitch is dead, get it? The filming of this scene felt very un-morning show. I felt like it was filmed to look like a Zoom meeting, so we saw everyone from the centre of the table. Maybe this is a little bit more foreshadowing of the coming lockdown. And then they finally get the call that we've waited far too long for. A journalist from Italy asking for a comment on the death of Mitch. Stella pegs out of the office with Corey screaming after her, "I don't care if she's in traction, get Alex in here." This is the energy we want from the morning show. The TMS team snapping into action, and I was disappointed at having to wait nearly 20 minutes into the episode for it. This is supposed to be a series set in the world of a TV show after all. Mia tells Chip the news that he needs to get Alex into the studio. In desperation, he eventually calls her credit card company, and with the help of her gender-neutral name, he impersonates her, being told about a recent charge from Milan airport. Chip is worried that Alex might have been with Mitch when he died and that she could be injured or worse. That perception never crossed my mind. And I think it's a lovely detail that the writers have added. When there is an emergency, suddenly every awful thing seems possible. We start to get a little glimpse behind the culture of how breaking news works. And I assume this is based on anecdotes and experience of people working in this area. It feels truthful. Stella takes a phone call from Wendell, who we assume to be her equivalent for their main rival, YDA. Wendell assures them this is TMS's story to break. Stella, hopeful that this news will give them a ratings bump, claims that mother won't have died in vain. Mia tells the studio, with a little bit more compassion, that they have unconfirmed reports that Mitch has died in a car crash. And she reminds everyone that he had a family and that they need to be very careful with the information. Here and several other times through the episode, we're assured that they will not broadcast the news until they know that Mitch's ex-wife Paige has been told. Mia says Mitch was a human being and then corrects herself, is a human being. After speaking to the hospital and confirming that a woman has been with Mitch, Chip really starts to panic and he runs to Corey and Stella with the news. They fly into action and demand to speak to Alex's assistant, Isabella. Chip says that Isabella doesn't like my kind, #mediocre white men. And it's some confirmation that he is really stuck up in his feelings about her. But more on Isabella to come. Mia needs confirmation before she's happy to broadcast the story, and we see her deliberating over whether to send Mitch a text message herself when she gets the word that Mitch's friend and a UBA colleague is on the phone. He confirms that he believes Mitch is dead, and it hits Mia for real. Naturally, we get some fabulous work from Karen Pittman as she deconstructs all of her feelings in a tightly written monologue. She felt they had a meaningful relationship. You think a guy at work likes you. You think he likes you for you, and that means enough to you, you know? You're willing to overlook his wife and his children. But the complexity of the emotions are very real as she has to contend with the imminent release of Maggie Brenner's book, which has been weighing on her for a few episodes. And then you get the job you were after the whole time, and then they publish a book. They lump you in with a bunch of other women who were legitimately victims of this empty, horny vessel. She feels undermined professionally. She doesn't know that Corey is preparing to spin her narrative as that of a powerful woman surviving and getting on with the job. But even that still frames her as a victim. Mia knows that. She knows she won't be able to define herself outside of Mitch Kessler. And that job you got? Why'd you get that job? To make it okay that you were victimised. But you weren't. You were the side chick. Mitch. And to top it all off, she still has to do her job. I think I knew the real him, and that book doesn't get the real him, and the real him is dead. And I had to put my personal emotions to the side and sum him up in 2 minutes. Now, that's quite a lot of quotes because the writing is now telling us everything that Pittman's spellbinding acting has been telling us for weeks. Mia is almost the Hannah of this season. She's a complex and interesting character connected to Mitch, not quite a victim, but certainly affected by collateral damage, and her story rivals that of the lead characters for our interest. Has this show been focused in the wrong direction the whole time? Maybe this is because we get more closure and revelations with side characters than we do with the lead roles, who are either always awash with mystery and intrigue for Alex and high drama and soap opera antics for Bradley. You know what I'm talking about. Then we see Isabella with Stella. Ooh, that rhymes. Stella wants access to Alex's emails, and Isabella does have the passwords, but here she begins to come across as a little basic and not particularly smart, and she gets played by Stella to hand over the passwords, which reveal that Alex is booked on a flight landing in New Jersey very soon. This scene annoyed me because, as I predicted, the show is undermining Isabella after her outburst to Chip. It's disappointing because she articulated a reasonable idea about white male privilege, but the show is employing it in such a manner that, as I said before, undermines the truth behind it, thereby allowing people to undermine those ideas in real life. This choice doesn't seem to be particularly serving anything helpful on the show either, so I'm left a bit cold by it. And then we hit part 2 of the show, which comes with a Bradley arc and an Alex arc. The Bradley arc is pure soap opera. Someone, completely intoxicated, turns up at UBA HQ Manhattan and makes it all the way through reception, up the elevator to the studio offices because he claims to be related to a famous person, someone that we've literally seen plastered on billboards. Last season, I called out the likelihood of Mitch being able to access TMS Studios after he's been fired, but this was 100 times worse. I was totally removed from the scene because I kept thinking, he shouldn't be there. Why is this scene happening here? Of course, it was happening there because they needed it to happen in this episode, but they were also trying to work with the timeline of breaking the story while the show is on the air. And this plotline just doesn't link or relate to that story, so it stuck out like a melodramatic sore thumb and detracted from a lot of otherwise strong scenes and storytelling. Bradley brings Hal to a communal kitchen, not her private dressing room where we usually see her, and, having just heard the incredibly confidential news about Mitch, Bradley decides to share it with her loud, intoxicated brother. In turn, he tells the gathering audience, including Laura, that their dad killed a kid when drunk driving. He then goes wild, starts smashing things, and we're supposed to feel like Bradley's world is falling apart. And I'm thinking, who's going to be writing this up in the security team and who's getting fired? But now Laura gets it. Or so I thought, but what we actually get is more of the same pseudo-counselling from Laura. Bradley needs to start making grown-up decisions for herself, Laura says. But Bradley doesn't want to abandon her brother because they had a bad start in life with bad parents. The problem with this recurring storyline is that it only pops up when Bradley needs something to overcome. It has no wider context or consequence in the TMS world. Laura says, at some point it doesn't matter why he is the way he is. What matters is he is bringing chaos into your life. Laura takes on a very maternal and caring role here, but what is handled well is that it doesn't necessarily bring them closer together. Laura is able to mentor Bradley without it being romantic and maternal at the same time. It was an adult caring for another adult without immediately mixing those feelings with romance. And I think that may spell the end of Laura and Bradley. A moment of silence, please. Alex is back, met on the tarmac by Chip. He tells her about Mitch. This scene is like a scenario from Acting 101. Who Alex is as she enters the scene is not the same as who she is at the end of the scene. And Jennifer Aniston is wonderful. Alex immediately hits denial and frantically calls Paula, who confirms the worst. Alex apologises. Paula was with him in the hospital. Mitch really loved Alex, she says. Then Paula hangs up. Alex refuses to go to the studio and says that Paige deserves to hear the news from someone who cares about Mitch. Then there is, for me, a terrible scene, perhaps the worst of the episode, although there's pretty close competition. Alex is listening to Chip's angry voicemail from the start of the episode, and then they just scream at each other. And I guess all of that fury is exciting, but it doesn't mean anything. It feels really empty. Alex says that Chip needs to accept that she is never going to bleep his bleep. I hate you so much. If I ever say anything different to that, you know I am lying so bad. Other than everything else, the worst bit of this scene for me is that Chip keeps taking his eyes off the road while driving. At one point, he closes his eyes while driving. Closes his eyes while driving after spending all day thinking that Alex has died in a car crash. It just seemed highly unrealistic to me. And it would have taken me out of the scene if the messy fury of it all hadn't already. Back to a much better scene with Alex telling Paige about Mitch. Paige responds by telling Alex that she always knew that she had been with Mitch behind her back. It only ever happened twice, says Alex, grasping at straws. Paige says she never knew the others, but Alex she knew and Alex knew her. She would hug her at parties. And she slams the door in Alex's face. Is Paige Maggie Brenner's source for the book, I wonder? Alex confirms for the studio that they have second confirmation and that Paige has been told so they can broadcast the news. Alex asks to speak to Bradley, and in their first interaction in many episodes, she says, I think you're the right person to do this, to break the news. Everything's changing and you were the start of that change. And I just want you to know that I so appreciate you, Which felt bizarre and from nowhere and serving no purpose. Anyway, the episode ends with Bradley announcing Mitch's death with Mia's words that talk about his successes and his downfalls. This feels like a letdown for the audience in some ways. We've been invested in the outcome of Mitch's storyline since season 1. We've been teased with various reactions and repercussions for Mitch, and then the storyline has literally driven off a cliff. So how do you feel about this episode? What do you think we have coming as we approach the end of the season? We only have 2 episodes left. We must see some lockdown, surely. Tell me all your thoughts in the comments below. Please like, subscribe, and let's talk some telly. I'll see you next time. Alex is listening to Chips's angry voice. Chips's?